everybody. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm joined with my good friend from Canada, Dan the Man Barwell. Always
Glad to
a
be here,
pleasure to.
Steve.
Oh yeah, always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. And as everyone knows, when Dan comes on, we talk about spiritual abuse. Uh, and this is a very special episode. Um, for any fan of the show, we've talked about a lot of things, a lot of different issues. Whether it be
Related
gaslighting,
to spiritual abuse. Yeah.
sure, whether it be gaslighting, in-group derogation, all these different things. Well, today we're going to discuss an organization called Hillsong, who has been scandal-ridden for nearly its whole
By
existence.
request, you were requested. Somebody
Yes.
requested
I
that
should
we
give him a
do
shout
this
out. I
video.
got an email from Tim Vining, and he said, "Hey, look into this video. I think it's a good illustration of everything you've been talking about." So Dan and I reviewed it. The YouTuber does have it copyrighted, so we're not going to show it on this video, but it will be linked in the description if you want to see the original video. It's
Yeah,
basically
it's
a
called
documentary. It's basically a
the
documentary on
Scandalous Downfall of Justin Bieber's Pastor in Hillsong Church,
right.
Carl Lentz documentary.
Exactly. So if anyone is familiar, this happened within, I think the big scandal came out on the news within the last 2 or 3 years. I think it was 2021.
2020.
Um
2020 is when the downfall, when he got fired.
Sure. And that was Hillsong NYC. So
Yes.
massive, super mega church, 10,000 people, 6 services every Sunday. You know what I mean? This is a massive organization.
Yeah.
Everyone's heard of Hillsong, Australia, North America, whichever. They've all had their problems. And we're really going to show how. I mean, we did a whole series simply just on Reformed theology. Yeah, I mean, we did a whole series just on Reformed theology, and how getting away from sanctioned doctrines and traditions, now you have 40,000 denominations and people can just do whatever they want with no true oversight. And one thing that really stuck out to me in the video, and after I say this, we can, hop into this critique, is that they said that the Hillsong organization had no set, how was it worded? Like no set bylaws or moral standards in place, which to me blew my mind. Like, you're this massive,
And no accountability.
Yeah, no accountability and no true oversight.
Free reign.
And that
as is the case with most evangelical non-denominational settings.
Yeah, exactly. And that just
local church autonomy.
Yeah, and that just leads to dictatorships and that totalitarian cult-like.
Well, the video ends up with Dr. Marlene Winnell. She makes a statement in the end of the video that she says, religion that causes trauma when it's highly controlling and prevents people from thinking for themselves and trusting their own feelings.
Yeah.
And this is where abuse begins.
Sure.
You can't think for yourself, you know, and you can't trust your own feelings. So you're defective, and therefore you have to be controlled. And it's that lording over.
We did a whole show on cultism and how modern evangelical Christianity, church to church, it's all its own cult, right? And
well, I think they always looking to grab onto anything that will be a hand up or give them some degree of success. I find with the Hillsong, and I'm old enough to remember when they launched in the 80s and came over to North America. But to me, they always reminded me of the old K-Tel record company. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember K-Tel Records, but they sold millions of copies in the 70s. And I think they went bankrupt in the U.S. in the 80s because, bad business practices. But believe it or not, they own the copyrights for so much music that they were the seed for Spotify starting out, and they came back in the 2000s. And they have just, thousands of records, and they did 8-track tapes, and they were all weird. I remember, Goofy Greats from 1975. It was a kid's, weird.
So
weird
it was really
conglomeration.
Yeah, they were
of
making an attempt
popular
to
genres. They would make album after album,
monopolize.
and
They were trying to monopolize the industry.
they were trying to monopolize it, but they were looking for an angle. And I always saw Hillsong as something like that. You could see they were trying to take that same approach and package Christian worship. And an article from People Magazine. Uh, I'm just reading right from People Magazine. It says the goal of Hillsong is to stay current, said Kelsey McKinney, author of God Spare the Girls. Instead of refurbishing your grandma's old hymns, it's something new and shiny. These kind of swells of emotion and huge momentous chord progressions, it's made to make you feel something. And then going forward, former Hillsong Sydney member Tanya Levin affirmed, music is really huge department because it's so critical to the church's power of hypnosis. The music is completely weaponized for whatever the church needs are, as well as financial, which is the aim of the game, is to get the money out of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it couldn't be said more plainly. But yeah, to me, they always had that KTEL record vibe, like the best hits of some genre, and
Sure.
they tried to manipulate or monopolize the Christian genre all the way up
Oh,
until
without a doubt. And on the
Hillsong
topic,
United was formed. Yeah, every local church was trying to play
sure.
like that and
And here's the
follow
deal.
that hypnotic.
I can say from experience because I played saxophone in church. I want to say this
I
is
played
probably two.
drums for a while. Yeah,
Yeah, I would say this is probably 2007, 2008, just off the top of my head. I haven't looked into this story for a while. But Hillsong United released a song called Healer. And this is Hillsong has always been riddled with problems. So this just goes to show the lack of oversight already back then. So they released a song called Healer. And I remember the video of it being played on stage, and the pastor singing it was on oxygen because he apparently had cancer. And he said that he was healed from cancer and wrote this song, and it was exploding all over the world. And then a few months later, we've come to find out that he actually faked having cancer. Um, so just like you're saying, this conglomeration, monopolization of the industry, trying to package and sell worship music, Christian worship
yeah.
music, they're even willing to go to now. Do I know if anyone else was involved in that? No, I have no idea. But to understand that this guy was a pastor and faked cancer to push his song, and it became like the largest Christian song in the world at the time. And then,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
well, their recipe goes back further than that, like 1993. "Shout to the Lord" by Darlene Zitch. It became such a huge hit, and that's when they began licensing its
right,
Christian
right,
music to Christian organizations. They basically began signing. What was it? Hillsong began to license its music to Christian organizations back in 1993. So your church had to pay them a royalty if they wanted to
yeah,
play Hillsong songs, and it became a
right,
source of large income. And they realized, hey, we can grow faster and bigger. And then, but the story that this video gets into with Carl Lentz in New York City, I mean, they basically went after that nightclub vibe, and
celebrity
they didn't
pastor.
host.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't host it in a chapel or build a church. They would host it in venues in New York City, and they'd be lined up around the block. And yeah, and it really got out of hand. I think he baptized Justin Bieber in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to understand the mindset to even attach to somebody like Bieber, who was having downturns, for living a rude lifestyle. And
Sure.
it's just the nature of the tests of life that come with a certain level of fame. You gotta have the integrity and character to maintain anything. And some people that win Powerball lotteries, and they're broken in 5 or 10 years, and they just don't have the integrity of character to hang on to it. Sometimes it's the biggest trial of life, is to actually have that degree. And the character development it takes to overcome certain standards, you can't cut corners on, because if you don't know how to deal with the issue, and like you said, Hillsong didn't have certain parameters in place. And Carl Lentz, when he got in there, he went for that full-blown charismatic cult of personality type
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
setting. And I'll tell you, you'd remember early 2000s, larger churches, of course, they all had to have their pastoral lounge. And I'll tell you a story, a pastoral lounge where the pastors, were waited on by the volunteers. This film gets into it, I think, at about
Yeah,
the
they call it
third
the
or fourth.
green room. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like volunteers start to develop an unhealthy competitive atmosphere, where whoever's closer to the man of God in a cult of
Yeah,
personality
sure, exactly.
somehow is higher up in the in group, and reality is terrible. But I think if you looked over this closely, you see in Lentz's life, when that was all removed, it's like withholding a drug. You can't live without it,
Right.
or in some respects. And sadly, the abuses that go on with these volunteers, just the entitlement idea. I remember once getting asked to be a volunteer in the pastor's lounge, after I reattended a church I hadn't been to for a number of years. And I remember saying to the person, they really let people wait on them. And this is how it got. And then I said, no, well, sign me up so I can actually see it with my own eyes, that they actually let people wait on them. Soon as that rumor went back to the pastors announced a barbecue where the pastors were going to serve everybody in 3 weeks or something. And it just goes to show you that the way they try to combat negativity
Right.
in their perception, in any perception of them. Lentz became quite a charismatic character. The video really goes into his background with the founding family of Hillsong, and he was a graduate of one of their colleges and met his wife there. And but until he was placed in that position to start up Hillsong New York, he was a nobody, more or less. I mean, or an
Right.
unknown. And the video touches on where he's he got all distorted. I mean, basically the church got to the point where they had a VIP section up front,
For
and only the
celebrity. Yeah.
celebrities were allowed. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so he became somebody who was chasing the fame and fortune,
Oh yeah. And then he's all over TV,
using all his.
on Good Morning
Oh,
America and all these different television programs, basically
but
saying
it's the
you're
way the
such a
mind
celebrity.
rationalizes it to himself. He rationalizes it to himself as if somehow he's doing it for the furthering the gospel in his own mind, right? And
Right.
so there's no limits, no boundaries. And that led to his downfall for sure.
And
But
the video was also very explicit that the faceless, as he called them, the normal people in his congregation, they really had no access to him as a pastor either. I mean, you couldn't have,
no, no,
there was no pastoral counseling. There was really no leadership role there at all. It's just, as you said, it's just that charismatic cult of personality. I'm up here, you're down there. Right.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then it broke away. I think by the 25-minute mark, where he got, once he was in with Bieber, he figured he was celebrity status himself, and he was found on that yacht in
Yeah.
Melbourne. Um, and the whole yacht was filled with models and whatnot, and he had them all come on there
A
with three
floating
things.
nightclub. Yeah.
They had to sign a non-disclosure when they got on board, and they had to surrender their phone, and they had to be a model, and that was their. Yeah. So he was, letting the Hollywood type lifestyle influence
Sure. And he was supposed to be the
him.
spiritual advisor for this person, but yet they're spotted together in foreign nightclubs. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah, the 26-minute, 8-second part of it, it says something about pay to pray. Pay to
Hmm.
pray.
Right.
Uh
Oh, he was a
yeah,
big prosperity doctrine preacher also. I mean, that's across the board. So,
yeah, that prosperity gives them that delusion where they think, everything they do is for the furthering of the kingdom, and therefore, yeah, nothing prevents them from whatever they're doing. It's somehow distorted in their mind as for the kingdom, and yeah, so then they go forward without the ability to make it work. And then things start to unravel around the 28.5-minute mark, where the one person got kicked out for coming forward and making a complaint. They were
yeah.
told they were spreading gossip, and this is just one of the way the control tactics start. If you yeah, unless you're with them, you're against them, and they start that sort of stuff. And then in the 29-minute mark, they booted out their gay music coordinator, who was
Hmm.
the guy was seen on Survivor with his lover or spouse, and they made him out to be a liar, and yeah.
And if I remember correct, he said that they were fully aware he was gay prior to that, and
Oh
it
yeah,
wasn't an
yeah.
issue.
According,
It was only
yeah.
until he's on TV that, oh no, you can't be a part of this anymore.
Well, yeah, because you can't take it. They can't hold a biblical stance, and so this is just the way. Yeah, they were ill-equipped to handle it, but no doubt a lot of people went there just for the setting,
Hmm.
and like I said, it was more club type setting, church, and call it church, and you'd have just the manipulative music to get you ready to hear a hyped up message, and then you get some screamer who's just trying to play on that emotional chord,
Right.
and people feel like you see in the video Bieber's you know cooing up to him, wanting to get closer. It's just, yeah, there was just such delusion across the board, and yeah, it's all about stroking the ego, and it's sad to see, but uh, the worst is the way it affected their honoring system they developed, which really led to volunteering abuse, where
Hmm.
people were slated to be in volunteer positions, for 12 hours a day. Yeah, and it just the people intend kindness, and they end up getting taken advantage of. And
Sure.
yeah, they had 6 a.m., yeah, 5 a.m. in the morning. They'd have to be there for 6 services, and it had this serious in-group culture, which always carries that threat of out-group derogation.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, and they kind of moved along very smoothly with record sales and hyping up and growth, right until COVID restrictions happened, of course, in March of 2020. Then all that gets taken away. They could only have online services.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, no volunteer servers to stroke a megalomaniac's ego because you're only online, right? And
Hmm.
there's no cheering, and there's no spectator. It's spectatorless, and so this all amounts to less adulation to the megalomaniac, and um, it's at that point where
And it
you can
really
see,
starts to go downhill, huh?
well, that's yeah, because he's not getting the adulation from the people in the atmosphere, that he starts enters the mistress and the dishonesty, and then he hides the encounter for 5 months, and
Hmm.
uh yeah.
And then after that point, there were
Oh
actually
yeah, yeah,
more
yeah.
congregants come out, or they remained anonymous, but more congregants came out and said that they were having affairs with him also. So it's
Well, there's still a lot of backstory, but yeah,
sure.
the worst is the in Australia, the way the founder's father, who had the original charity license prior in the 70s, he um, was accused of so many things, and the son, Brian Houston, who was considered the founder of Hillsong, he was criminally charged with hiding
Right. Right. Sweeping it
the
under.
evidence
Mhm.
that validated or proved his father, and at a certain stage you're complicit, right? And
Sure. Sure.
um, when they get into that idolatrous mindset of justifying anything for their idol, they think they cannot be in the wrong, and yeah, it just it
I mean, he was
inevitably.
quoted as saying regarding I believe it was sexual predation or something like that that the father was doing, and the son Brian, he outright says, you can hear his voice on the video. He outright says, yeah, we stripped him of his ministerial duties, but we never turned him into the police. Well, you wonder why you're in trouble, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. When are you concealing a crime? Yeah.
yeah, so what exactly did you do? I mean, so in a
Well, inevitably, Brian steps down from Hillsong,
oh,
right?
sure, sure, but in that micro economy of the church, sure, you may have taken away his ability to minister, but that's not serving justice. That's
Well,
pale
yeah.
semblance
I
of
don't think
justice,
all
if
the
anything.
dust is settled yet on the matter. Like Lentz inevitably moved to L.A. and was paying $16K a month for a house.
Yeah.
Where did all that money come from? And
Well, Tyler Perry paid for 6 months of it. When they said that in
yeah,
the when they said that in the video, I was pretty floored. Just upfront 6 months worth of rent at $16,000 a month.
yeah. There's 80 grand, right? I mean, there's so many people don't realize the manipulative tactics of these megalomaniacs, and the last few episodes we did with Kenneth Copeland. I mean, the charm of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the charmer. Of course, he's innocent as can be, and the problem's got to lie elsewhere, and. But this is Lentz was just trying to repatch his life up after his wife and him broke up for the while. Of course, he hadn't needed the house to have room for the kids and whatnot. And but who needs to pay 16 grand a month rent? Nonetheless, I don't think all the dust is settled in the sense that there are probably still a lot of accusations that have not come to light, and
Sure.
possibly more potential criminal charges across the board. But it's the standard fare, everything you and I have talked about. The way the outgroup derogation practices try to hide everything under the carpet
Mm,
inevitably becomes too big of a lump that people
right.
notice. And in that video, I think what it does show is that more people started to come forward after 2021. Um, yeah,
Right. And that's what I wanted to talk about gaslighting. We did a video on gaslighting.
yeah.
Um, the
Well,
word
he even tried to
gaslighting is,
gaslight his own wife.
yeah, she actually
After.
caught him. She caught him having some type of relation with, I don't remember what the relationship the woman was to them, but she walked in on them, and he actually then began gaslighting her and saying, "No,
You
you're the
didn't see
problem.
that. That
You didn't
didn't.
do
Yeah,
that. That's not what I was
you're.
doing."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Oh, apparently, yeah, he was with a nanny or something.
the nanny.
But
That's
that's
right.
not the
That's right.
not that's not the girlfriend he
That's
got
not the
caught with.
mistress. That was on it. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
different event.
Right, but yeah, try to gaslight her into thinking she didn't see what she actually saw, even though she was there for 2 minutes and watched the whole thing.
And punched the nanny in the face.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And she
So
seemed
it's
to fairly remain level-headed, but I mean, her whole life, yeah. And she ended up getting fired from Hillsong as well shortly after he did. And this is just the way when, like I say, all the dirt they sweep under the carpet for years, gets to be too big of a lump.
Mhm.
People start tripping over it, and when they start dealing with so many volunteer abuses, it's inevitably you're going to end up with dissatisfied, unfulfilled people that are saying,
Sure.
"Hey, I can't take this anymore. This shouldn't be going on," especially from religious leaders. And
And a
yeah,
statistic that really showed that the video mentions, and this actually blew me away, is that out of the 16 Hillsong locations in North America, 9 have closed.
yes,
That actually blew my mind away. But it makes sense that, we're seeing all these scandals. These scandals have been going on for years. They just get swept under the rug. There's no oversight over the leaders. It's pretty clear that the faceless, as this Lentz guy would call them, the just normal guy who wants to come to church and be fulfilled spiritually,
Yeah, and help
they're
out
not
where he's
getting anything, right? They're
yeah.
realizing it's one big abuse machine. It's just nothing but a business.
Yeah, just like that article in the People magazine, where Tanya Levin said, yeah, the music was completely weaponized for whatever the church's needs are, as well as financial, which is the aim of the game, is to get the money out of the people. And sadly, I got to be honest that I read so many stats of late that I think church attendance, especially here in North America, was dropping off so drastically before Lentz came onto the scene and launched Hillsong New York. It was, like I think it was down like 20 million plus numbers from the say mid 90s to late early 2000s. The numbers were down about 20 million in attendees in North America, so there was a good decline. But then you get dramatic cult of personality. He was on an upswing for a number of years and didn't survive post COVID because his ego was not prepared to deal with the scenario where their adulation wasn't there. He needed to be on the big stage. It wasn't enough to just be behind the camera. He had to actually be in front of the people and get the hands reaching out and the cheers and everything that comes with that. And we've seen a lot of pastors, go through burnout or claim burnout when it comes to doing actual real work, unless they're getting the adulation. And these are the atmospheres that they foster.
Right.
And yeah, you need to look at it in that light, right from the get go. The green light was given to, there was no map, there was no, this is who we are and what we do, like certain cults or denominations where they have some structure of identity that they go in a certain vein. Nope, Hillsong, nope, they wanted to corner the hypnotic market of the high energy music, and
Sure. They
you could
actually in
see
a
how that would draw the likes of Justin Bieber. I mean,
right, right, right.
only way, yeah,
And the
going to
gay song
church is,
leader or the choir director or whatever he was actually a Broadway performer, involved in Broadway, so musical theater. So you could see they're bringing in professionals, and I'm sure that's why they overlooked his orientation,
oh yeah,
right? Because he
got
brought the he
stage
brought
and
the show
sound, yeah,
business. Yeah.
yep, yep.
And furthermore, there's a few instances in the video where you actually get to hear Carl speaking. Uh, what you'll notice is the tone, the minor key of the music in the background as he's always giving his little, and it always feels like an intimate talk, right? Like he's just talking to me. Do you know what I mean? And he's there giving this talk, but there's always, soft mood
Oh yeah,
setting music
background
in the background.
manipulation
So
of
there's
the
ambiance.
emotions.
We've talked about the musical manipulation and musical abuse. We did a whole video on it. So what I really wanted to get across with this recording, with this video, and I'm glad Tim send us this video to work off of, is really you see in one location everything we've been talking about. Because of course we get comments on the video saying, "Oh, that's not true. They're not real Christians." Uh, on every single one, like, "Oh, well, that's not in my church," or this and that. This is one church that literally has the overload of every issue we've talked about. Um,
Oh yeah, and I
and
still don't think everything's come to light yet.
oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, there's more to come, I'm sure. But like they to them they focused on music to be it's their power of hypnosis, and
Uh huh.
people don't realize that their entire souls and the resonance of who they are can be stroked. And if your emotions are leading you, you're not pursuing proper fulfillment. You got to have your intellect in control over your emotions, or else inevitably you're going to be led astray. And yeah, sadly, they played up on that, just like
Hmm.
a Pied Piper, if you will. And yeah, and they were probably getting large royalties from many, many, many other evangelical churches. And
Oh, without a
all
doubt.
they liked was the power ballads and the songs that
Yeah.
kept people coming in the doors everywhere. And I'm thankful I've been out of Christianity for quite a while now, and so I'm sure that since this has actually happened, I wonder if it's had a negative effect on other like-minded evangelical churches. I mean, I came out of a charismaniac type setting like
Yep.
that, and I saw all this type of behavior even when I was young, and the music used as manipulation. Um, and you saw it often. People only went for the worship. They
Sure.
would say they were
Sure.
there for the worship, and it had nothing to do with Almighty God at all.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
was
when
for
I
them
was
to
in
scratch
church,
their feel good string. And yeah.
having been a musician in the church, I mean, you always knew like the song list before it started.
Oh, and
Um,
you jam and practice. You have
oh
practice
yeah, yeah,
sessions.
yeah. But what I'm really trying to bring to mind how you're saying about um there for the worship and
Manipulate.
this and that. Uh, when we were in church camps or revival services or even Sundays or Sunday nights or whatever, the best services were the ones that had no preaching because the worship was that impactful. It just kept going. Is what we
Oh
would
yeah, where
say,
the mind checks out and it's all about the
and
feeling.
and it just yeah. But really, what it was is just this manic euphoria, and the tears are flowing and everyone's giving each other hugs and people are talking in tongues all over the place and it's this crazy spiritual experience. But yet,
It's delusional.
yeah, exactly. It's just a euphoric state, um, with no
Almost, yeah,
substance.
drug, almost like a drug induced.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, yeah. It's exactly, yeah. Hmm.
Well, I was reading some Hasidic material in the last couple weeks, talking about um, proper prayer and connection with Almighty God, and to literally be one that is capable of ascending into the palace of the King, if you will. And there is innate within humanity that desire to connect with the source. And you can see how music feigns that. It takes you to that state where you're, not quite there. I mean, I'm old school heavy metal head when I was a young
Nice.
kid, and to be
Love it.
honest, yeah, I remember the dawn of mosh pits and seeing Motorhead, and
Yes.
you dare
Love it.
not got into some of those old school mosh pits. You come out with a black eye or
Oh yeah, you
broken
come out
nose.
beat
And
up. Yeah.
yeah, but in Christianity, yeah, they were trying to make it that connection,
Right.
and there was always something wrong with you if you couldn't feel that
Exactly.
connection.
Exactly. Yeah, you didn't get those tingles down your spine. And disclaimer, everyone, we're not saying music's a bad thing. It's just
No,
when it's utilized to create a
hypnotize.
response, when it's yeah,
Yeah.
to hypnotize, that's weaponization. That's totally different than just music as, music itself. I mean, we even see in Tanakh that I believe this was the prophet Elisha. There were certain times that he would need to hear some music to be able to get his prophecy.
Yes.
So we're not saying that music is bad. What we're saying
Oh
is when
no.
it's weaponized is when it's bad.
Yeah. Well, that's just yeah. To try to be a person of selflessness. Um, I read a great concept in on the Chabad website. They have a concept that was put out by the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe. They call it bittul bimziut, and the term is defined as an entity of selflessness, and it has to do with that merging of yourself with the will of God, and truly being an entity of selflessness, but you're still an entity. um, seems to have a lot of spillover notions with Christianese oneness in a sense, but where Christians go off the handle is you have to lose yourself in it, and
Right, right.
you can't be an entity. They vilify any you within you, and yet say they're not vilifying you,
Of
and
course. Yeah. Because
it's
because
all part.
they have to bring that original sin theology that humanity is just so depraved and disgusting, you know.
Yeah, yeah. There
So they
can't
just
be
take
any good,
everything way too far is basically the point.
and they don't see they're doing it because,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
Lentz, they justify, rationalize their entire actions as being for God, and
Sure.
somehow, in
Copeland did
some
the
way,
same
shape,
thing
or
in that last video, or in the
yeah.
first video we did about him, you know. Well, I need to be on a flight because it's for the kingdom. I need a private flight because it's for the kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the big thing with the Hillsong is the way they micromanaged. Oh, they had debit cards where they shared, passed out
Directly
to
from the tithe,
people,
yeah. That blew my mind too.
people in the ministry, and it was their way of managing somebody's idea to, manage expenses rather than receive prepaid receipt and reimburse. Nope, they handed out loaded debit cards that people would use, and then when
Hmm.
they're getting abused, oh, I need more, they would load them up. And uh, yeah, there's a lot of articles out there that show the tracking of such, where they spent, so much on flights and hotels and shopping sprees,
Wow.
with tithe money, just nasty stuff. But it comes down to the governance of humanity. On its own, it just doesn't work. It tends to those maladaptive social psychological behaviors, and it ends up coming to ruin somewhere down the line. Whereas for a couple thousand years, it was able to hide it under the carpet and silence the opposition with a war. Um, in modern times, it's just not acceptable. So the alternative is implosion, and that's exactly what happened with Lentz.
Yep.
They could believe all they want in the message, but to pursue that superstardom and control over it, I mean, yeah, it got the better of him. I mean, where he was, out binging, drinking, and partying and doing whatever. I mean, I think that all played into his infidelity, and so
I
he
believe
he was.
his moniker, his I don't think he gave it to himself, but he was almost I think he was called the rock star pastor because he
Well,
was
yeah,
living
he
such a lavish lifestyle.
image. So everything was all about image. I mean, I did see one article on Brian Houston's wife, who she was kind of
Oh,
reeled
the
in.
one who was telling everyone to all the women in the church to get plastic surgery so they stay
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. She was reeled back in for that. I
That
mean, but
was
I
funny.
mean, oh man, how yeah, so many of yeah, the vanity of it all. Trying to be the best you can be. You have to have a target of what holiness is in order to truly shine and reflect that light. You can't just uh polish yourself up and think you're all that and then some. Nothing's more egotistical and vain. It's disgusting. But
Sure.
yeah, Steve, I don't know what else to say. I mean, well, there's so much that was in that video, but
Right, right. I mean, and it would take us days to really
yeah,
break down everything.
the
Uh,
52-minute mark, it caused mental illness in multiple staff.
and that's
Yeah.
horrible. I mean, when it's one thing if you can recognize that you're being spiritually abused. You know, you can understand that there's things going on here that that
Or unhealthy.
that my soul just doesn't mesh with. But when it starts affecting your literal health, you know, and you're having mental and emotional health problems, you know,
Well,
I'm
this is where
neither
I said,
Dan and I neither of us are Christians, right? But whichever religion you subscribe to, You know, if it spiritually fulfills you, like you should walk into the building and want to feel better on your way out, you know? But when these things are causing you literal harm, I
But
mean,
yeah, that's a result of that aberrant salience I spoke about before.
sure.
They're focused, they're salient. What jumps off the page to them is an aberrance that doesn't need to be there, and that's at the bedrock of in psychiatry. It's at the bedrock of schizophrenia.
Mhm.
Um, People think they see things that aren't really there, and you often see this of heavy evangelicals. They can see Jesus everywhere in the Bible, even though there's absolutely no connection whatsoever. And you get, I think I got one image on my computer here of something called Bacon Jesus, where a few
Oh
strips
yeah.
of bacon were put in the pan, and the way it burned on the pan, it
Or
looks
his
like an
face on
image
a
of.
piece of toast or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but that's aberrant salience. And sadly, is people start to see negativity in others
Sure.
and they don't leave space for anybody else. And this
Oh,
concept
Dan,
of
here's a funny example. You're gonna like this. Rabbi Federer and I did a response video. We've done a few videos where people leave really dumb comments on my channel, and we'll
right.
basically address the issue. The one was regarding something called the crucifix fish. Um, the fish, when you skin it, fillet it, what's left is there's a skull bone that looks like a cross. Okay. We put this up on the and me and Rabbi Federer are like, it could be anything. I could look at the back of a tow truck and say, oh, well, that's a cross. The Torah is strictly against reading bones, right?
Yeah.
That's part of divination. But it's funny how you say, it just jumps off at you. But here's the thing: would a Hindu who doesn't know who Jesus is, would they see that? Like, would they even care?
Of course not. No,
You know what I
no.
mean? So it's right into that aberrant salience. You're going to see what you want to
Yeah.
see.
Well, pareidolia goes on like an ink blot test. Have you ever
Yeah,
seen
exactly,
an ink
exactly.
blot
Rorschach. Yeah, exactly.
images in a cloud?
Hmm.
Oh, that looks like, well, it looks like, but it's not, right? Aberrant salience. No, it is. It is. It is. It's somehow you see it, and yeah, you try to convince others that what you're seeing is in fact true,
One
and that
final
leads
point,
to
and then we can wrap up. But on this topic, and it goes to show the homilies and the aberrant salient procedure that goes into really the Christian worldview. This was when I was still a Christian, and I was like, ooh, mesmerized by this lesson. Apparently, in our organs, there's a protein called laminin. Have you ever heard of this? It's like the protein that holds our organs together, and the protein makes the shape of a cross, right? And yeah, big deal, as if so many other things don't. And this pastor, he's similar to like a Hillsong non-denominational type thing, and he goes on and on. He's like, the glue that holds your body together is a cross. And but it's just one of those things that you're searching for every little thing
but
outside
that,
of
yeah,
the source,
yeah,
to prove what you believe, even if it's just total off the wall ridiculousness, right?
yeah. That's the saliency bias or saliency effect, and it plays out when it starts to affect your life in a negative way. It's considered a bias. That's
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
problem, and um, the way they rationalize it to themselves. I'm doing this for the kingdom of God, the kingdom of God, and therefore the kingdom of God, the kingdom of God, and therefore
Sure. I
it's
mean, I
okay.
could use that exact same metaphor and say it talks about the ancient Egyptian pantheon. I mean, they were using crosses long before the Christians were. You ever see
Well,
the little Egyptian cross from
I've
way
seen the
back in
same
ancient
thing
Egypt? You
happen,
could
Steve.
it's
In
you
the
could
auto in
use
the auto
these.
industry, when I sold cars for a lot of years, I mean, the whole idea in sales, or to prosper, you had to make profits, and in order to make profits, you had to sell volume, and you had to make strong average gross profits. But I watched certain salesmen go from being decent people to being, retards. And we would call them retards when they reached the point where you could no longer interact with them outside of work.
Right.
If you went to a restaurant, the bill would come and everything was in a negotiation, and they were so used to getting every dollar all the time, every time. They functioned in a certain way and rationalized it as it was normal behavior. And
Sure.
sadly, you get to the point where people start staying away. And if you proclaim you're a Christian, and yet crowds move away from you, you've got to really honestly reevaluate your life and say, are you truly doing God's service? I mean,
Right.
your thoughts and your speech and your actions have to be effective in this world and make it a better place.
Yep.
And demanding your version of truth over somebody else's,
Sure.
because of this, and you see this, and you see this, and you see this. When it's aberrant salience and salience bias, there's no discussion with somebody like that. It's like a
Right.
schizophrenic. I mean, they're convinced, there's something coming out of the sewer after them, and you can't have a conversation. I mean, like, I've had to deal with security around around a lot of drug addicts, and
Sure.
when they're nutty, yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. And sadly, some Christians are just, that far gone, and they keep rationalizing it in their
Yeah.
mind that
And
it's somehow.
they're that hopped up on their Jesus. It's the same exact thing. And
Yeah.
in conclusion, everybody, I think we've beat this horse over the head long enough. But there's so much there. There's so much there. And everybody, if you have something you want us to talk about, if you have a video just like this one, like I said, will be linked in the description, that you want us to discuss, talk about, just make sure it's relevant. We gladly will. But one final,
Review it.
yeah, we'll review it. And if it's, maybe even bring up some images like we have before to react to. But don't be sucked into this hate that's masked as love. We've talked about that so many times, is because this fellow wasn't a nice guy. He treated his volunteers terribly. His personal driver treated him terribly.
But he was so charismatic, they wanted to
Yes,
be close to him.
yes, treated his wife and his children terribly, clearly. So ultimately, it's this hate that is being packaged as love.
Yeah, I
And
got sick of the hate they call love. Yeah, I got tired
and
of it myself.
yeah, and it's
Had
all
enough
over the
of it.
place. It's all over the place. It's sad. I mean, you can see it. You can see it in, and I hate to bring this up with the climate politically in the Middle East right now, but anti-Semitism. Oh, we love the Jews, but realistically, you hate them because they reject Jesus. That, I mean, you'll find that in just about any Christian church. We love the
Mm,
Jews,
the
but
Gospels
yeah,
are full of it.
exactly, exactly. I'm actually,
Sentiments.
there's not too many people that know about this, so this will be the first on air revealing of what I'm working on. I'm working on an in-depth 2-hour documentary about the New Testament's influence of modern anti-Semitism. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah, it's called Arbeit auf Deutsch, in German Arbeit macht frei, which is what the gates on the concentration camps read. Work makes you free in German. How the New Testament influenced anti-Semitism, and
Oh yeah,
really was
yeah.
the baseline cause of the Holocaust. Sadly, I hate to say it, but it's going to chronicle really most of the anti-Semitic history in Europe and how it can all be stemmed from New Testament literature. So there's so many Christians that would say, yes, we love the Jews, but they're only saying that because they believe that when the Jews believe in Jesus, then the redemption, like, then Jesus will come back. It's not because they actually love the Jews or love Israel. In fact, they have quite a lot of malice against them for not believing, and it makes them question their
That's
own
where the
belief.
rubber hits the road for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But it translates into other things too, as we see here. This hate disguised as love. I'm going to love you until you're in my congregation and doing what I say. You know what I mean? It's always
And you
an
become
evangelism
dependent. Yeah.
tactic, so. But yeah, everybody, Dan Barwell, check out Noachide World Center on YouTube. As I say every time, they offer the content that this channel doesn't. If you've come out of the church, you've come across this channel, realize
Yeah,
the issues in the New
don't give up
Testament.
on Almighty God. No,
Right, right. Don't take the all out of Almighty, as you always say.
no.
If you've made your way out of Christianity, you have the questions, and you're wanting to understand how you can now live a fulfilling spiritual moral life according to the Torah as a non-Jewish person, Noahide World Center. That's the place.
Thanks,
So,
Steve.
of course, you can always find us on Facebook, email. Dan, if you want to just give them your email if they ever have a question.
Yeah, my email is dan.ca@britolam.community. That's my email with the Noahide World Center. Or you can find me on Facebook, and I do a lot of advertising there, a lot of broadcasts on Facebook and YouTube, and we just did a big run with Rabbi Schulman's Noahide Path. That was excellent on the weekend. We had people from all around the planet. It was exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, if you
Our
ever want to
prayers
get
are with those in Israel. I mean, yeah,
certainly.
we did a couple
Certainly.
broadcasts on the weekend with rabbis in Israel, and the feeling there is still, yeah, they lost people, and they need to make an end of Gaza. This has got to stop. I mean, it can't just be a partial repercussion in a ceasefire, because then it's only a matter of time before
it's just going to
Hamas
start all over again.
takes the millions and millions of dollars donated to them, and rather than build themselves a healthy society, nope, they just stockpile and build themselves weapons bunkers underneath their churches, underneath their synagogue, or underneath their
hospitals
mosques,
and mosques,
underneath the schools. Yeah.
Horrible.
And hide their weapons there, and that way if they get attacked, they can say, oh, you've killed innocent people. I mean, you're dealing with terroristic mind, and it's got to be ended for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Pray to Hashem that it ends quickly, honestly.
Yeah, and
permanently, quickly and permanently. But until next time, everybody, this was the Exodus Project. I'm Steve Eisenhower, Dan Barwell. We'll catch you next time, everyone.